Alright, and we are back. Hi everybody, this is LMP Games, and welcome back to my Final Fantasy VII Rebirth playthrough. So I was doing some thinking this morning about the spoiler kind of thing I was saying last night about how I'm going to try and not do spoilers. I think that God, the lighting in this area is really bad. Everything's gonna be like drowned out, but I think that I'm going to go back on that a bit because it's over here. I don't know if I came back over this way before. That's like an elevator, but we can't do anything with it. Okay. Oh wait, maybe we can. Wait. Ah, damn it. They thought about that. So, I'm going to, this is kind of a warning here, right? So, there will be spoilers for the story, for this game and the rest of the game, for the next one as well. In terms of, like, potential spoilers for what may happen. Definite spoilers, probably, too. I'll be doing some theory crafting as we're playing through this game, and I'll be talking about things that are, different from the OG game and how they're different and whatnot. So there will be spoilers. Because I do want to do have hypotheses and things that I'm stating instead of like, you know, not stating them and being like, oh, this is interesting, and then like not adding any context to finish off the thought because, oh, there's like a crazy giant ass spoiler if I do, kind of thing. So if you have any intention of playing this game, any intention of playing the original game, any intention of playing the next game, or remake, and haven't played any of those yet, then I'm gonna say don't watch this series. If you have played all those games, well, except for the next one because that's not out yet, but if you played the rest of them, and you played this one, then it should be good. If you don't care about spoilers, then keep watching. If you don't plan on playing anything, you just want to check out the game and see what all the hubbub is about, but you don't plan on playing any of the FS7s or anything like that, you don't really care about that, then keep watching as well because it's not really going to impact you that much. Alright, that out of the way, let's talk about the opening sequence. So, because I sat on a lot of stuff that I was thinking about from that when we saw the opening with Zack. So, it does appear that that's Zack's timeline, because we see the stamp. Remember when I mentioned the stamp thing, the stamp billboard? That stamp design is the design that was showing on the chip bag that flows past the screen when we see Zack survive. Which is not the same design as the one from the remake's timeline. Now, the reason that's relevant is because that debunks the theory. When put into context with everything else. So the prevailing theory among the people that were like, oh, it's not multiple timelines, it's the same timeline, was that that chip bag could potentially be in the past still from where Remake is at, right? Because technically what happens is oh, and Crisis Core too. Yeah, if you haven't played Crisis Core, spoilers for that as well. So if you intend to play Crisis Core at some point and haven't yet, also spoilers. Otherwise, keep watching. I'll give you enough time to pause or close the tab. Okay, so, in Crisis Core, after Zack dies, it's a period of about 4 months before Tifa finds Cloud in Midgar. And Cloud's just been kind of wandering around like, God, this is popping down here, that's insane. Been wandering around Midgar like essentially like a Sephiroth clone, just being, you know, totally out of it, totally incomprehensible. And, theoretically, that would be enough time for there to be like a design change or something like that. Theoretically, right? Now, the reason I didn't subscribe to that in the first place is that even though it's a theoretic possibility, brand changes like that don't normally happen that fast. Unless there's a really specific reason. And I didn't see a really specific reason for that. So I always believed that that chip bag was like signifying, oh, this is a different timeline from Remake's timeline. Now, what confirms that in this game so far is that, well, it may or may not, we'll see. I think it will confirm it. Because of how things seem to line up between Zach's timeline and this time, and the Remake timeline in terms of the... Also, funny thing, right now, this flashback is happening in the original's timeline. Let that sink into your noggin for a bit. There are actually 3 timelines in this game franchise. You got the Remake timeline, Zach's timeline, and the original timeline. And right now we are in the original timeline. Because, you know, this is what happens in the original game, is what we're playing through right now. Right, nothing different about it in terms of, like, you know, the Sephiroth fracking with things. But anyway, so what I think we're gonna find out is that, and I think it was essentially confirmed in Remake, at least in the DLC. Was it intermission? Or Integrate? Intermission? Integrate, whatever. The Yuffie DLC, whatever that is. Stupid Square naming things really similar. You know, Integrate is something else, Intermission is something else different from Integrate. But it contains, one of the two contains the other one. It's like, Square sucks at naming things, they always have. That's how we got, like, you know, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.5 Remix Remind in your ass kind of bullshit game title name. So, oh wow, I just noticed that. Is that symbolic? What the hell? This rock here? What the hell? This rock here is literally the comet trail from the title logo. What the frack? That's hilarious. How did I not notice that before? Anyway. So, what I'm talking about is when we see, I think it's at the end of the Yuffie DLC, when we see Zack enter the church, and Aerith is in there, there's a bunch of people there. That's from the aftermath of the Sector 7 plate dropping, right? So that moment that happens in Zack's timeline is overlapping that moment in Remake's timeline, which means they're happening at the same time, which means that that would not have been possible for there to be two different types of well, there is a possibility, but you can discard it because this is a game, and you don't just do things for no reason. Now, if this is real life, I would say, oh, that's probably just a coincidence, because, you know, it's just an older style chip bag that's been blown around Gaia for however knows long. This happened to be blown around in that particular part of the world at that particular time. In a game, that you can't have that conceit, because in the game, everything kind of matters. When you're showing something to the player, it's going to mean something. Usually, if you're good at, you know, writing and visual storytelling, that's going to be the case. And, you know, Square Enix isn't bad at writing stories. So they're not going to just throw something in there intentionally unless it's red herring, which I don't think it is. Because we saw it again in this game. If we didn't see it in this game, if it was the other stamp image, then I would say, okay, yeah, that was a red herring. But we saw the other one. The one that wasn't the same design as in the remake. So, oh, that's weird. Oh, it's a dirt decal. I mean, I can overlook stuff like this in this game and like these larger scale games. Now you might say, "Oh, but it's a massive game with all this money behind it. Why say that's okay for that to happen?" Because of what you just said. The scale of this game is so huge that taking the time to clean up and polish every tiny crevice of a map, the game would never come out. Because there's, like, probably, literally, 50,000 small things throughout this, you know, the first couple of maps they played through, they could have gone through and cleaned up a bit to make it look a bit better. Like this pop in here, for example, the lighting, big one. There's a lot of places where lighting isn't the best. Probably a lot of places where these decals aren't fully, properly attached to the surfaces they're supposed to be on. And going through to check every single little detail in every single map to make sure it's where it's supposed to be at. While you may think it's reasonable for them to do that, it isn't, because you're not a game developer. You've never developed a large game like this. Now, if you had developed one and you think that it was still reasonable for them to do that, you're still wrong, and I don't know why you think that you're right. But you're still wrong because of the same reason. They would never get the game done. Even with like a team of like 200 people looking for this stuff. There's just too much. You know, these large-scale games, there's just too much in them to fully polish it and fix every little thing. So you have to overlook and ignore some things. Some things you'd have to, like texture quality on stuff. Like, for example, there's some rock faces around here that have some really horrible rock textures. At least it was back in the other portion of the map, not necessarily here, though. And the way you get those is you resize rock meshes. You don't essentially build them to the size they need to be. So it happens that the UV map gets stretched, and then the texture that goes on top of that gets stretched as well. There's like a common thing of like you never resize a rock texture. Well, really, you never resize a model, period, in Unreal Engine. If it's a model you made and mapped in like Maya or 3ds Max or something like that, whatever size it is the size it is. You don't resize it from that. You don't scale it from that. You build it to the size you need it, and then it's just in the game that way. Because if you don't, the UV maps and textures are going to get stretched to hell, and that's how that happens. So there was some of that was going on. So, I mean, there are some things that they legitimately probably should have gone back and fixed. But this isn't one of them. Anyway, back to the thing. So, Zack being alive, I don't know if Aerith died there. Now, the reason I think that she might have died is there's a direct correlation to where she does die originally. And like the holy materia kind of falls out of her headband and bounces down into the underground lake in City of the Ancients. The holy materia in that scene fell out of her hairband. That is symbolic of that previous, of the original scene where she dies at. So, she might have died there. There was speculation that she was still alive in Zack's timeline. I'm not so sure anymore. If that's the case. Though, that could have been just a red herring for Square to be fracking with our minds and like, oh, you think you know what's going to happen? No, you don't. So that could be a red herring, could be a misdirection. But it is symbolic, for sure, and does raise some questions. Now, in terms of the rest of the team, it seems like the rest of the team is dead. Absolutely seems like everybody else died. I'm pretty sure that it was partially confirmed somewhere that Tifa and Barrett were dead. Or at least that Tifa was dead. It definitely seems like Red was dead. It seems like he died taking out the helicopter, basically. So it appears that the rest of the team is dead in Zack's timeline. So it's Zack, Cloud, and Aerith, potentially. Which is nuts. And I wonder how that's going to go down there. Also, what I mentioned in when we were going through the first sequence with Zack and all that was like they're mentioning somebody with a Buster Sword that was with Avalanche. Zack isn't with Avalanche, right? And isn't with that because what I was thinking maybe was that that moment was happening in sequence as it normally did. Zack returned with Cloud, to Midgar. It was like 4 months in the past. Zack meets up with Tifa at some point, maybe through Cloud somehow. Zack joins Avalanche, and then everything happens the way it normally does. And instead of Cloud, it's Zack, though. That doesn't seem to be the case, though. There seems to be a third potential soldier that is in the mix now, because they're saying that there is here's the caveat to this. At the end of Crisis Core, Shinra was trying to kill Zack and they had branded him a traitor. So maybe it's an extension of that. They're saying that there's a ex-soldier with the Buster Sword that's helping Avalanche because they want to essentially lop in Zack with them so they can kill him and have a reason to kill him. That's the only other thing I can think of. Either there's another soldier that's in the mix now, or it's Shinra taking the propaganda they've been spreading about Zack and actually inserting it into this other thing with Avalanche. Which they're doing with Avalanche and Wutai, for that matter, too. Because they're trying to restart the war with Wutai so they can take the Mount Daochi, something. Essentially, there's a mountain that's in or near Wutai that has an insane level of Mako under it, in it, around it. Garrett and Shinra wanted to build a reactor there, which is what started the war with Wutai in the first place. And that's what happens during Crisis Core. It's kind of the tail end of that. And they've like heavily referenced or inferred through the remake that Shinra wants to restart the war, wants to end the ceasefire, and wants to basically steamroll over Wutai and take that Mako source. But yeah, so there's some weird implications with that first scene in terms of the rest of the game. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I don't know if they're going to touch on it, because once we get through this section of the game, we're going to be going on through the rest of the opening, we're going to go past this. We're actually going to be playing the fracking game, because this is the fracking game. And I wonder if they're going to dive further into the fact that Tifa doesn't really, because this flashback sequence is actually a lie. It's a fabrication of Cloud's mental instability. So, for the sake of context, throughout most of the game, Cloud isn't really Cloud. Cloud is Zack. When Zack dies, Cloud takes on Zack's personality and memories, sort of. It's a weird thing. It's never really fully explained, but essentially that's what happens. Cloud kind of like assumes Zack's personality, and a lot of the things that happen and are provoked and like kind of done throughout the course of the game are from this Zack Cloud, we'll say. So like his attraction to Aerith, Aerith's attraction to him, the way that he acts, the way that he responds to things, the way that he interacts with various moments are all kind of influenced by Zack's personality, his memories, and things like that, of that nature. So the reason is because right now the character we are playing is actually Zack. We're not playing, Cloud is this grunt over here, and the character that we're playing is actually Zack. So from Tifa's perspective of this point in time, of this scene, the events that are happening right now, Cloud was never here from her perspective. she didn't know that Cloud was a grunt. Cloud was being a wimp and was embarrassed that he never made it into soldier at all, let alone the first class. That he failed his objective, that he couldn't, and was afraid that he couldn't fulfill his promise to her. So he just kind of, you know, wanted to not exist, basically. And she never learned that it was Cloud. And she doesn't learn that it was Cloud until later on in the game when she rebuilds Cloud's personality and his psyche in the live stream. Essentially strips out everything that's Zack. So I wonder if they're going to dive into that here after we get through this and have her acknowledge that, because I don't think she does acknowledge that in the game, the original game at all, really. It's like, there's like moments where she seems confused about things, but she never comes out right and says that, you know, oh, Cloud was ever there, kind of thing. So I wonder if they dive further into that here, because that would be really interesting to see and this is also something that was never really fully explored in the original game, but I think would be interesting to see in this one, is if they have the influence of Zack over Cloud be even more pronounced. Because Zack and Aerith were basically lovers. They didn't really delve too much into their relationship in that aspect in Crisis Core, but I think pretty much we can assume that they were lovers. So it'd be interesting to see if the influence of Zack in this game is so pronounced that the relationship between Cloud and Tifa is strained, or is broken, or is, you know, starts from a point where it wasn't at before Cloud got mind fracked by Zack. Because that would be a really interesting angle, and then to like see Sephiroth exploit that. Because remember, Sephiroth right now is not this Sephiroth, but Sephiroth in the story of the game so far is trying to find ways to undermine the party so that he can stop them from stopping him. So, given his knowledge of events and what kind of time period he's from, it'd be interesting to see him attempt to break the party by going after Cloud and Tifa and causing some kind of mischief there. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue. We'll see what happens. They add anything new over here? No? Nothing added?
Didn't expect it to be all systems go.
You'd think it'd be running at reduced output, like most last-gen models.
And let me guess, villagers don't have a clue about this.
Knowing Shinra? Of course not.
The company
Is this music new?
more transparent.
Tell that to the
Nah, I don't think so.
What exactly is the problem with this place?
The people in charge. While most reactors are under the jurisdiction of urban planning, this one is overseen by R&D.
Huh. Why do I suddenly have a bad feeling about this?
Probably because you're smart, Cloud.
Here, you are not to speak about.
Probably because you're
No, I
smart.
won't.
When Hojo's involved in anything, you should be worried. Hojo's one sick MFer. Hojo is literally the first science meme personified into a character in a game. Literally. You just know there's going to be a boss fight here when we come back here. The size of this room, it's going to be used again at some point. Same thing with the area in Shinra Manor. The basement area there. Oh, that's interesting. So, in the original game, I wonder how that's going to work out. In the original game, what happens is that Zack and Sephiroth have a fight. After the scenes happen here later on. And Zack throws him over the edge of this walkway into the Mako below where he dies, essentially. Cloud's perspective of the events here, he gets stabbed by Sephiroth and then like lifts him up off the ground and chucks him over the edge and into the Mako, and Sephiroth dies. But this area is closed off right now. Interesting. Anyway. Didn't notice that though when I was going through the demo.
Perhaps you'd like to say a few words to your sword first?
And that's something that Zack always did. Because that's something that Nangiel always did, was essentially praying to a sword, kind of. There's all these references and things to stuff that, if you know what actually happens, it's like, you know, not necessarily fan service, but it's like, you know, rewarding your knowledge. Which is cool. This game is so unique in that aspect. Like, you're making a game that's so old, everybody knows a lot of things. Has been like an exploration of all the story. And the reason I'm talking over this because we've already seen this, so I'm not worried about it. Normally I wouldn't talk over cutscenes. But it's just so unique because
Wasn't that
they can do things because of all the different media and all the different bits of information from the different games. They can throw into here references to that stuff, and the people that know will get a heightened experience from it, and the people that don't know won't. You know, but they won't be... It's like not story required things that you need to know. It's just things that if you know, it creates this, like, to borrow the phrase from Max, you know, it creates a different level of understanding of the game. Versus, like, you're playing through this the first time, you don't know, you just think that Cloud's this kind of dorky character. By the way, Cloud's dorkiness is from Zack. It's not from Cloud, it's because of Zack. All of his dorkiness, all of his weird mannerisms, all of his grouchy ass holy things, that's Zack. Zack's personality through Cloud. Cloud's an entirely different person. Which is why I find the whole shipping scene kind of crazy, because if you know that part of the story, you realize that a lot of Cloud's attraction and feelings for Aerith are from Zack. I mean, he probably has his own feelings, you know, but to say that, like, it's canon that they're supposed to be together or something is weird. I mean, you could argue maybe, you know, it's like a fusion of Zack and Cloud's personas. It's super complicated, and the shippers make it out to be really simple, which it isn't. Just do not get the shipping fandom in general. This is just such a ridiculous thing. The story is the story. If you want to have headcanon about certain things, you can. But yeah, so if you know things about the story, about the game, from playing the other games, holy hell. Were there this many turns to this before? Dynamic difficulty, adding extra turns to the wheel. Somebody's Angie in there.